Hello, math students. Welcome back to Module 2 called Rational Numbers. This is Lesson 6 called the Division of Integers. Our goal for our lesson today we will learn how to use integers with division. The question that I want you to think about is, what are the rules used with dividing integers? We've been working with a lot of rules with adding, subtracting, and multiplying, and now we're going to learn the rules for dividing. So what are the rules used with dividing integers? All right, so starting off with things to remember. When you were in math earlier on in elementary school, you possibly or probably learned about what a fact family is. A fact family is, in math, a group of numbers that when you add them or subtract them, multiply them or divide them, they become the members of that specific fact. And so what we're going to do is we're going to recognize what fact families are so that we can apply them when we're working with division. So if we look at this one, what is the fact family of this math sentence? 3 times negative 5. So if we're going along with what we learned in our lesson last time, we learned that this right here means number of groups, right? And this one over here means the integer being used, right? And the other thing that I want you to remember is that when you solve this, there's another number that shows up. And so basically what this problem is saying is it's saying that I have 3 groups of negative 5. So that means that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're all negative. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're all negative. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're all negative. So now you can see I have 3 groups of negative 5, and when I get done, I see that I have negative 15 chips. Well, the answer is negative 15, which is what we need, because now we can determine the fact family. Okay, so the fact family for this specific problem, every time you use it, every time you see it, when you have 3 times a negative 5, you will get negative 15 as the answer. So the way we think about this is the fact family for this specific problem. And the thing you've got to remember about fact families is they are specific to every problem you use them with. So the fact family for this specific problem is the family members are 3, negative 5, and negative 15. These are the family members, okay? And so that's how I want you to remember. This integer is the family member, okay? This negative 5 is a family member. And this negative 15 is a family member. All right, and what I want you to think about when we're talking about family members is think about your own family, okay? You have you, and then if you have your mom, you have your dad, you have your brothers, you have your sisters, if you have that. So let's talk about my family for a minute. There's me and my husband, so we are mom and dad, and then I have Jackson, Derek, and Olivia, okay? So I have Roger's my husband, Aaron is me, Olivia, Jackson, and Derek are my kids. So we make up a family. Those 5 people are the only people in our family, okay? So they are the only members that we have. So if we're relating it back to math, these 3 integers, 3, negative 5, and negative 15, are the only family members of this fact family, okay? So that's how you identify the family members. Okay, so now let's try it down here. What is the fact family of this math sentence? Again, okay, so let's remember what we're doing. This 2 tells us the number of groups. This negative 8 tells me the integer used. So this time I have 2 groups of negative 8. There's 1 group. There's 2 groups of negative 8. So when I count them all together, I see 16 negatives. So my answer to this would be negative 16. So the fact family for this specific problem, remember it's each individual problem, the fact family that gets created is the integer 2, the integer negative 8, and the integer negative 16. Those are the only 3 family members that belong to this specific situation, okay? Now, some of you are going, why in the world is she telling us this? Well, the reason that I'm telling you this is because you have to remember who the fact family members are in order to determine the missing piece so that you can figure out what the division is. Okay, so each one of these guys are family members. So when we're working with them in a different situation, you will be able to physically see who is missing from the fact family. Okay, so division of integers uses the fact family members. Division is the opposite operation of multiplication. So the fact family members are always the same. So you don't get to change your values or your numbers. Your family members are always the same. You don't get to change them out. So for example, 3 times -5 equals -15, and -15 divided by 3 has to be -5 because those are the fact family members. I'm wondering if you followed me with that. So let's go back up to here. We have the fact family members, 3, -5, and 15. We already identified it. In this problem, it says 3 times -5 equals -15. Remember, boys and girls, these are the only family members. So if I write a problem that says this, -5 times what number gives me a -15, well, using your fact family members, you can figure out who's missing. Well, -5 is here. -15 is here. So what has to go in there? If you're thinking to yourself, yes, it has to be 3, then you're correct because 3 was the family member that was missing. So -5 times 3 equals -15. And you are absolutely correct because these are the 3 family members. Okay, so now let's try another one. What if we say -15 divided by -15 divided by 3 equals what number? So look at your family members. Who is missing? -15 is here, 3 is here. Who's missing? Well, -5 is missing, and so that tells us that this has to be the answer because that's the missing family member, okay? So 3 times the -5 equals -15, and -15 divided by 3 has to be -5 because those are the fact family members. All right, so it's really cool. If you can figure out who your fact family members are, then you're always going to be able to decide who is the missing amount, and that has to be the answer. So to divide integers, all you have to do is determine the fact family that makes the dividend, and then complete the opposite to determine the missing part. Okay, so let's try it and see if you guys can figure this out. So the one that I want to try is 24 divided by a -2. So our first job, again, just like on the other side, is that we have to figure out the fact family members. Okay, that's our first job, is to figure out our fact family members. And so we have to ask ourselves some questions because we don't know, but we do know this, that -2 times something is going to give me a 24, right? And so what we have to figure out is what number multiplied by a -2 gives us 24. Well, we do know our math facts, and so our fact family members is we have a -2, we have something that we've got to figure out, and we have a positive 24. And so what we can determine from this is we're missing a number times 2 that gives me 24. And then we remember that when you have negative groups, right, because again, this is the number of groups, so don't get confused about that, number of groups, right? And this right here is the integer. And so I can ask myself in my brain, what number times 2 equals 24? Well, I think that it is 12, so I'm going to put a 12 right here. And then we have to be careful because it says that I have negative groups, or -2 groups of 12 gives me the remaining, so the chips that are left on the table are going to be positive. So what do I really have to take away? Well, if you're remembering when you have negative groups, you have to do 0 pairs. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really fast. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's my first part of my 0 pairs, right? So these are all positives up here, right? And these are all negatives down here. And I'm supposed to do that 2 times. So here's my second set, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Negative, 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 positive, 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 oops, positive, 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 positive. So what this is telling me is that what's left on the table has to be positive. So what does this means take away. So what do I have to take away? So there's only positives on my table. And if you said I have to take away all of the negatives, you are absolutely right. So I'm going to take away these negative 12. They're gone. Take away these negative 12. They're gone. What's left on my table? 24 positives. So what did I actually take away? Negative 12. So that is our missing family member. Okay? So family member is negative 2. Family member is negative 12. Family member is 24. And so now I go back to our problem for missing family members. The 24 is here. The negative 2 is here. So what does my answer have to be? My answer has to be negative 12. Okay? So that's pretty cool. I just have to locate the fact family members, and I did that by remembering that division is the opposite of multiplication. So I set up my multiplication sentence, figured out who I had to remove, and then I found my missing fact family member, and I could solve the problem. Okay? So boys and girls, I would like you to try a couple more. Okay? And something that I want you to think about is that you may not have to draw a whole bunch because I want you to notice something. Up here, 24 divided by 2, well, I know 24 divided by 2 is 12, but then I also remembered that if it's a positive on the tabletop, that I had to get rid of the negatives. Okay? And if you look at all of these are negative. So I'm going to have to do 0 pairs and I'm going to have to remove something. So what you decide is left on the tabletop is what you decide the missing number is. So 72, 8, and what is the fact family for this guy? So if you're saying fact family members for this one, fact family members for this one, well, I know that I have a negative 72. I know that I have a negative 8. And so what I'm trying to find out is what is the missing member. Well, I know from my math facts from long ago that 9 times 8 equals 72. Now I just have to decide, is that 9 going to be a negative or a positive? And I have to have my negatives on the tabletop. So what am I circling to take away? You got it. We're taking away the positive. So that is a positive 9. Okay? So it's using your visual stuff. If you can't visualize it in your head like that, draw it out. But I will tell you what, I don't want to draw 72 circles. I really don't. But that's completely up to you to decide. Okay? So that's how you do it without actually drawing them. You just have a logical conversation with yourself. I have 72. I have negative 8. This negative 8 determines your groups. So even if you wanted to just write that part out, that might be smart. So you have negative 8 times what number gives me 72 negatives left on the tabletop. So the negatives have to stay. So what do I have to take away? I have to take away all the positives. And how many positives do I have to remove? Not, 9, all of the 9 positives. And then you'll have 72 negatives left on your paper. So that's how I visually did it without drawing them. So it's completely up to you to decide. I'm going to let you try with 42 divided by 14, and I'm going to let you try with 62 divided by negative 3. Okay? So again, find your fact family members, figure out which one is missing, and then determine if it's a positive or a negative. Okay? So going back to our goal for today's lesson, today we will learn how to use integers with division. We're going to spend some time on this, so don't freak out about it. What are the rules used with dividing integers? Well, let's look. It says if you have a positive divided by a negative, your answer is negative. However, if you have a negative divided by a negative, your answer is positive. That's something to think about and something to remember. All right, kiddos, that's all I have for you today. We will do lots and lots of practice with this so you don't get confused. Talk to you soon. Bye.